Okay, I'm back. Let's continue from where we left. I was saying that so before I was here, I was finishing up iOS, and Apple and Android are in battle, right? So actually, what's happening right now? This is based on an article from November 2013 at TechCrunch. You can click here. Apple is battling resurging rivals. It sounds like a terrorist warfare, but what's the resurgent rivals you can see in this list? Android, BlackBerry. Well, BlackBerry is not resurgent, but Android and Windows basically. So this is the numbers from US. The numbers you hear are the percentages. I don't know why these links are coming from here. It's very annoying. Um, anyway, so Android share. Okay, let's look at iOS for example. This is from 2012 to 2013. You can see that from 53% it's going down to 43% of market share, and Android has just did the opposite. It went from 42 to 50%. So actually, this is the historical moment, right? The Android market share surpassed the iOS market share in this time frame. BlackBerry is insignificant, but Windows, although small, has been increasing steadily, so it's like a twice increase, and you can see the percent change in here. And US is not alone. Similar trends have been seen in Europe, the five big European countries basically. 7% increase, 7% decrease for iOS. So 7% increase for Android and opposite change in iOS. And 5% increase in Windows. So this is actually bigger than what we've seen in US. Bigger market share. iOS already had a small market share, but now it's even smaller. In China, iOS is still strong. Android is barely changing. There's a 5% increase, but and there's no BlackBerry. But so Apple is not alone in this market, in the mobile market. New platforms on the rise are both Android and Windows. So Windows is smaller, but it's on the rise. And I'm not going to talk about it today, but you can learn it by yourself. Okay, so about Android, I'm going to very briefly skim over Android framework. Um, History of Android. This is again I stole it from somebody else, and actually, if you click here on the slide, on the first slide, it will take you to the original presentation and the person. Um, Android was founded in 2003, not by Google, by individuals. Um, it was designed by some California company. The logo. Google only bought Android in 2005, and since then it's been supporting it. In 2007, it published the first mobile phone based on HTC Dream. Actually, there was another phone called the G1, Google Phone 1. Um, Android is an open source operating system, so all of the code is available. You can actually download the Android kernel and compile it yourself, and many people have been doing that. This what's called the mods. There's for example, Cyanogen or Cyanogen mod of the Android kernel, and you can just add certain features or remove certain features that you don't like, and compile it yourself and then distribute to other people. So lots of people make their own mods. Um, so in October 2012, there were 700,000 apps available for in this market. So it's um, actually larger than the number I just reviewed for iOS from 2011. Of course, this is from 2012, so it's not fair to compare. But it's equally big. That's the point. Um, Estimated downloads are 25 billion. So the iOS number was 10 billion, but again, it was 1 year before. Android passed the Symbian OS. Symbian was an older operating system, but it was the major player in the cell phone market. Like all the Nokia phones had Symbian, and I think also actually, I'm not sure about BlackBerry, but anyway. So Android has worldwide smartphone market share of 75%. with 500 million devices active. So this is not, I don't know if this corresponds to the statistics we saw before, but each of these statistics are probably including certain things that the others don't and stuff. But the numbers are around the same place, right? 60 to 70%. 1.3 million activations per day. Major releases are named in alphabetical order with international bakery items. So I'm sure you guys heard of like cupcake and ice cream and stuff. These are like very stupid names, but actually just look at the first letter and it will tell you the sequence in the version. And I'll show you the example. Google has a mobile computer called Nexus, a mobile phone called Nexus, together with HTC and LG, and coming under different brands. So this is the projection about the internet and mobile users worldwide. It looks like there are more mobile subscribers than internet users. So in 2010 there were 2 billion internet users, but 5 billion mobile users. So it's already more, and in the future it's going to be even more larger, 10 billion compared to 5 billion internet users. So we do want to be in this market. And these are the different types of cell phone activities over time. Taking a picture, texting, and this is over like 2009 to 2012. People doing more and more accessing internet, more email, more video. All of these things I've been doing more and more. So to recap, what is Android? It's an open source platform. It's available on a wide variety of smartphones and also tablet devices. Android is based actually on top of a Linux kernel, so it's based on an open source, but it's a very limited kernel, and there's some libraries, framework, and applications. These are the version numbers that I just complained about. Cupcake is a C. There's a donut, eclair, froyo, gingerbread, honeycomb, ice, so it's C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K. So Jelly Bean and Key Lime Pie. Key Lime Pie is a new version, 4.3. I think I already have one device that I loaded this thing on. So I think it's already out since 2012. One more thing, you can see there's an API number. So this is the actual developer's version number, right? So this is when you look at the library that you're going to use, like the functions, they are changing with these numbers. So if you want to make something work in ice cream sandwich, you need to make it compatible to API number 15. These percentages are the number of devices on the market that are using these versions. So somehow this gingerbread 2.3 has a very large market share. Why? Because probably some of you have those old phones that are stuck in that version, because you cannot upload the new Android versions on those phones or tablets. So basically they're stuck in that old version. So this is actually the bad part about these mobile markets. You have to make your app compatible with these old Android versions so that they will work on these phones. And if you don't, you miss 40% of the market. And these are some future, well, not future projections, but it is, are these future projections? I'm confused right now. No, these are just the timeline of these different Android versions and how much percentage of the market they will take over time. So Jelly Bean just came out at this time in November 2012. So this is from November 2012 to March 2013. It's just showing Jelly Bean as being getting some new small market share. Ice cream sandwiches increasing its market share, gingerbread and froyo. So froyo was 100%, is getting smaller. Okay, so to make an Android app, what you have to so you have to still create your own development environment. And like in the iOS version, like in iOS, if you remember, you had to install Xcode on a Mac computer, and in this case, you have to install the JDK, so Java Development Kit. So Android is Java, so that should be a relief to some of you, right? Most of you know Java very well, and Eclipse works very nice with Eclipse as a nice integrated development environment, and works very well with Android. It has some Android plugins. Now there is an ADT plugins or a plugins kit. ADT is this Java. It's an Android thing, basically. Android development toolkit, maybe. So you have to install that too, and this is for pushing things to the phone and installing stuff on the phone. But anyway, so these things work very nicely. You probably have already used these tools. Remember, all of these are free. JDK is free. Eclipse is free. You don't need a specific type of computer. They work on many different platforms. So you're already very good. So I was just going to say that, right? I was going to emphasize that everything is free, no red tape, no licenses. Everything is open source. Most of them are open source, at least. They will run on any mobile device, meaning that as long as you make your app to work on them, but at least you don't need to get a deployment license. Like if you take any Android phone, if you go to the settings, there's a setting there saying that allow installations from well, basically there's a setting to allow installing any app, and then you can put a file in there and you can install the app from the file, and you can just connect your phone to your computer, copy the file over there, and just install the app. So you don't need anything more than that. But let's keep going in this presentation. Just a few more slides. I'm almost done. Again, we're not going very deep, unfortunately. Just giving you an introduction, trying to gauge your interest, if there's a lot of interest, and if you want me to go into these things, we can take another lecture and go deeper. So the software stack is basically the stacked architecture of the Android system. It has these different layers. It's like almost like the Unix system. There's the kernel, which is the deepest layer that you're not gonna be doing too much with. There are the libraries. There's an application framework, which is very near to your app, and then there's your application there, which is your app. So your app will be talking to this framework, like to open buttons, make buttons, to open windows, and to show graphics. And the libraries are more like system level stuff, like displaying sound or making sure the screen is refreshing at a certain rate and stuff like that. And the kernel will basically control the power. It will go to sleep, or connect to the network through 3G and whatever. So those will be the different what each of these layers will be doing. And this is a little bit more detailed view of those different layers. So okay, I was already telling you these things, right? I should have waited for this slide. So for example, keyboard driver, Wi-Fi driver, flash memory, all these things, low-level things are done by the kernel. The libraries are like OpenGL, is the hardware accelerated graphics. Secure sockets library, this is like SSH basically. WebKit is the browser. So the nice thing about these this mobile frameworks is that you can run one command and open a browser. You can open your own browser, and that will be part of your app. There's SQL, media, we can like running videos. Very similar to iOS, everything in iOS is almost in here too, it's just different. Surface Manager, I'm assuming is the touch stuff. And this is the runtime of your app. It's running on a Java virtual machine, so it's called the Dalvik virtual machine. Application framework, basically like their packages. Location manager, basically you can ask if you're in this location or not. There's like GPS library, notifications, resources, telephone, like you can make calls and stuff. Those are part of your very close to your application, and your application will be on this level. You'll have your own applications. I mean, if you make an application, it will be on that level. Now this is a little bit more detail about your own app, and similar to what we saw on the iOS version, where we saw the model view controller type of organization, but this is about the life cycle. So once you start an app, for example, this is on create. This is when you first launch an app. It starts and goes into this on start state, and from here it will start resuming to do something. It will be running, so it will be running at, like, basically it will be in foreground and running state. So you press a button, it will do something, and then it will stop, and maybe it will ask you to press another button. So at that point it will be paused, so it won't be using any more battery on processing. Now from here it can, if you press another button, so show me one more page for example, it will go back on restart, it will go here, it will do stuff, it will go on the foreground and do something, and again will be paused. So when it's paused, actually your application is not doing anything. It's basically, there's no control on your application. It's almost like it's over, but there is still a chance that it can start again, right? So this is a very different type of mindset than writing a regular program, right? In a regular program you always have the control, and sometimes you may want to wait, like get some input or something, but you always have the control. But here is a different thing, is that control is triggered by the system, otherwise you're basically paused. You have small times for doing stuff. And the basic reason for this is that it's an event-based system. It's triggered by the events, like button presses or touch presses, and it wants to save battery. So you don't want to be waiting in some loop. Instead, you just not do anything. And if you don't do anything, it's gonna shut down and go to sleep, go to standby. And from that point, if that happens, it will stop. For example, if it's going to, it gets dark and stops. It's called the on stop state, but your program will still be in memory. And if you like turn on the phone again, it will just show up on the screen again. So it from that point might start again. Okay. Oops, sorry. But there's one more stage. If you somehow exit that app, so if you go back, for example, if you click the back button on Android, it will be removed from memory. It will be destroyed, and that's called the on destroy event. Sometimes if you run out of memory, it will also destroy some old apps. So this is a little bit more information about how the app cycle works, and it's quite different from regular apps. And if you think of a web app, it's totally different from that too. Just to give you a flavor. So it's Java, but it's not just like writing a regular desktop application. So as a summary of all of the things I talked about today, if you want to write something that works on mobile platforms, the easiest thing to do is develop responsive web apps, right? Because you can write it such that it will work on both desktop and different mobile platforms, as long as the device size is accepted by your CSS. It's gonna show up nicely, and it's not too hard to do that, especially with these CSS frameworks we just talked about. And I'm really emphasizing this because this class we cannot diverge too much onto mobile development, but we are I'm trying to give you enough information about web apps, right? So maybe you can use that and you can make a responsive web app to work on mobile platforms. That will be much easier than taking the other approach and trying to make this native mobile app, which it has a lot of advantages we already talked about. But you'll have to use a different language. You'll probably have to learn this ObjectiveC, and it's not that straightforward. For Android, it's Java. It's not bad, but you still have to learn the libraries and those frameworks, the APIs and stuff. And I told you there are the different versions and stuff like that. For Windows mobile platform, so I have a link here. So I didn't show you any details about that, but if you click on this link, it goes to a slideshow about that. And the languages again different. You can use C Sharp, which is the high level version, or Visual Basic. I don't know if you know what this means, but that's how I feel about this. Um, but these are both the high level languages, but you could also use C or C++ to write in very low level mobile apps in Windows, which may be an advantage in certain cases. If you're like developing a embedded application for example, for an industrial application, low level application, then you may want to use that. Now, on top of these things, instead of learning all these different languages, you can take a cross-platform approach, meaning that you write an app that works on all of these devices. Right? That sounds magical, right? But there are different ways of doing that. So you basically use it in write your app in this high-level language that creates an Android version, an iOS version. It creates them automatically for you. And there are many versions of these things. I won't go into details, but you can Google these things and learn more about them. As I said, you're free to choose either way, but I am recommending that we keep this class simple. We focus on web apps in this class and try to use responsive web apps so that we also cover the mobile platforms. And next class, hopefully, we won't have ice and snow, and I will talk to you about our next project, and we'll go from there. Okay, and that's all I have for today. And please start the conversation about this class so we can talk, because that's what we couldn't do. I'm sure you're happy about that, but let's still try to make a conversation. So if you have any comments or anything that comes up to your mind, just write it on Piazza under the post I made for this class. And if you have questions similarly, and if you don't want to write in front of everybody, you can still send me a private message or email. Okay. Have a good one, because I don't know if you're watching this day or night.